All right, all right. Welcome. Welcome to the workshop. I love my life. I love that song. You're going to hear that song a few more times. Hopefully you heard it. You're going to hear that song a few more times tonight. I'm so glad you guys are here. I don't want to greet anybody individually now. I'll do that after the break. But I do want to welcome you. I'm very appreciative that you're here with us tonight. And this is going to be a very interesting and fun evening. All right, so I'm glad you guys are here. Let me share with you the agenda for this evening. Okay, so I have a few announcements, quick announcements I'm going to make. Then I'll talk about the topic for tonight, the things that we're going to cover. We're going to take a 5-minute break from 8:35 to 8:40. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do the exercises. We're going to have a question and answer, and you guys are going to have a chance to share on the exercises, the assignments that were part of the workshop tonight. And then we'll wrap it up by 9:30 or so. All right? So let me jump in. And if you didn't get the assignment, I'm going to post that right before the break. It's 4 very simple questions. It'll only take a couple of minutes to do if you haven't done it already. All right? So let me start with some announcements. I just want to let everybody know that I have a discount code available for you guys. If you don't have the book yet, or if you want to buy a copy for somebody else, I have a 20% off discount code, Workshop20. Just put that in at the checkout, and you get 20% off. It's about $4. And this is for the author signed paperback, so I'll actually sign a copy for you as well. All right, so go to BeBiggerToday/book. I'm also really excited to announce that I'm almost, not quite, but almost done with the audiobook. I've been working on that for a few months. It's going to be, it's unabridged. It's going to be 9.5 hours, give or take. And it's available right now for pre-order for $9.99, which is about less than half price what it usually goes for. So check out BeBiggerToday.com/bookstore, and you can pre-order it there. It should be available hopefully by August 1st. And then the last announcement is that I am available for you guys if anybody's interested in one-on-one coaching or business consulting. I work with authors, artists, writers, that kind of thing. Or if you have a company, you want me to come in and talk to the management or sales team and work with them on being bigger than they think they are, just let me know. You can shoot me an email or contact me through the website. All right? So this is our workshop topic for tonight. Who do you think you are? And the subtopic is how we see ourselves determines everything. So if you have read the book, you know that this is a huge theme in the book. And for me, it came about several years ago. I'll tell you a little bit about my story, my backstory. I was an attorney for many years, and in 2008, I lost my law business during the global financial crisis. And I decided I wanted to do something more exciting with my life, something that I was passionate about, and that was photography. So I moved my life and my business back to the East Coast, and I decided I was going to be a professional photographer. And it didn't go very well at first. In fact, for the first 3 years, pretty much nothing was happening. And at first I thought it was the economy. It was still a tough economy in 2010, 2011, so I thought it must be the economy. And then I thought, well, no, it's not the economy. It must be all the competition from all the other photographers out there. That's what was getting in my way. And then I realized, well, no, maybe it's not the competition. Maybe it's the fact that I don't have an education in art or photography. I mean, I went to law school. I went to business school. I didn't study art. I don't know anything about photography. So that must be the problem. And then after that, I thought, well, no, it's not that. It's that I don't have the latest and greatest camera equipment. That must be it. That must be the problem. And eventually I realized, you know, that had nothing to do with the real problem. The real problem was not out there. The real problem was in here. And what I realized was that I had a very negative self-image when it came to being a creative person. I was filled with self-doubt. I was filled with fear of criticism and rejection. And all of that conspired to keep my life very small. And I came to this realization, you know, 2011, and I started to think about this idea many, many years prior, when I was an attorney, I was having an argument with somebody, another attorney, and in the middle of the conversation, she turned to me and she said, "Who do you think you are?" And she meant it as an insult, but it stuck with me. That question, I thought, wow, what a great question. Who do I think I am? And another way of saying, who do you think you are, is how do you see yourself? How do I see myself? And so I began to look at that, and I realized, you know, what was holding me back was not what was going on in the economy. It wasn't what was going on with the other photographers. What was holding me back was I have some friends texting me in case there's a technical issue. So I started to look at this question of who do I think I am? How do I see myself? And I realized I had a very negative self-image when it came to being a creative person. And so I would tell myself stories like, well, nobody's going to like your photos. And nobody's going to want to hire you because you don't have a degree in photography. And other photographers are better, so why bother? Don't even try. Just stay home. It's nice and safe and quiet. You don't have to worry about being rejected. You don't have to worry about criticism. You don't have to feel afraid and then feel ashamed of that. And so I began to listen to those voices in my head, and I began to question them. And I began to say, you know, is that really true? Is it really true that I'm not good enough? Is it really true that I don't have any talent? Is it really true that I don't have what it takes? And I began to question those thoughts and beliefs about myself. Now, the thing I have to say, the first thing is it was very hard to identify them, to even recognize that's what was going on, because those ideas about myself became so much a part of who I thought I was that I never questioned them. I never stopped to say, is it really true that I'm not a creative person? So that was the first thing, was to begin to identify those negative thoughts and beliefs that I had about myself. Then the next thing was to begin to work on changing those things, to say, how can I have a new idea about myself that serves me, that moves me forward, that supports me? And so I came up with some tools. Oh, here's another thing I want to share with you guys. I realized that what I believe is true about me becomes true for me. So it's my thoughts and my beliefs that essentially create my reality. And so if I'm thinking negative thoughts, if I'm consumed with this idea that I'm not good enough, that I don't have what it takes, or I'm too old, or I'm too young, whatever the thought is, then I'm going to actually create a life around that belief. And then I'm going to have experiences which tell me that that belief is true. So it was very clear to me that I had to change my thoughts about myself if I wanted my life to change. The other thing that came up that was very clear to me was not only did I need to change how I saw myself, but I needed to change how I treated myself. One of the big things, people used to say to me all the time, oh, you're so hard on yourself. And I would say, well, of course, I have to be hard on myself. How else am I going to be better? How else am I going to get better? And I realized that it was my negative thoughts and then beating myself up for that that was creating all this conflict. And eventually it was the self-recrimination that I was able to identify as a huge source of fear in my life. So I realized not only did I have to see myself differently, I had to treat myself differently. And so as I talk about in the book, you know, I've done my best over the last 5 or 6 years to go from being my own worst enemy to my own best friend. From being really hard on myself to being really gentle with myself. And from being really unforgiving with myself to being very forgiving with myself. And so that has freed up a lot of energy. That has given me the space that I needed to go out and do the things I needed to do. So how is my life different? In the last 5 years, I've won more than 70 awards for my photography. Now, we're talking about somebody who never, before 2011, who never won an award for anything in my life because I was convinced I wasn't good enough. I was convinced I didn't have what it took. I was convinced nobody was going to like my work. And so by changing how I saw myself, I began to put myself out there. I began to enter contests, shows, exhibitions, and I began to win awards. And it was just like, it was amazing to me because I never saw myself that way. It never occurred to me that that was possible for me. I went from somebody who never dreamed I could have a photo published in a newspaper to someone who has had photos published in newspapers and magazines around the world. I went from somebody who never thought it was possible to sell a photograph to anybody to someone who has sold prints to collectors as far away as Australia. And I'll tell you guys, the only thing that changed was how I saw myself, who I thought I was. So that was kind of the impetus for me to start on this journey, to write this book. I'm going to share with you some of the tools that I've used. And we'll talk about some of these as we go. The first tool is positive affirmations. Now, one of the assignments that I gave you guys for today was to write out a positive affirmation. So when we come back from the break, I want to hear from you what your affirmations are. Number 2 is having a vision statement. Number 3 is guided visualizations and meditations. Number 4 was a vision board. And number 5 is called a mind movie. Now, I'm going to go over each one of these tools in a separate workshop in the next couple of weeks. But today I just want to talk briefly about the affirmations. Affirmations tend to get a bad rap. And I think there's a few reasons for that. And I'll tell you how I've worked with them. So the first thing is the affirmation has to be repeated. It has to be something that you turn to every day, that you use every day. What I realized a long time ago was that I was negatively affirming my life all day long. I was telling myself I wasn't good enough, I didn't have what it took, I don't have enough of this, I have too much of that, I always mess things up, I'm late to the party, you know, the whole thing. So I was negatively affirming my life all day long, and I realized, wow, I have to counteract that. And we're really talking about reprogramming our thinking. So using affirmations on a regular basis. Now, here's the thing about affirmations. They have to be believable. Okay, I can't just say, you know, if I'm making $50,000 a year, I can't just say, I'm going to make $2 million next year. It has to be believable to my subconscious mind. So I pick an affirmation that is, you know, it's something to strive for, something to stretch for, but it still falls within the realm of possibility for me. And then the last thing to say about affirmations is the affirmations have to cause us to take action. It's like in the second chapter of the book, I talk about how our thoughts lead to our feelings, and our feelings lead to our words and actions, and our words and actions lead to the outcomes that we experience in life. So if I start with crappy thoughts, I'm going to have crappy feelings. If I have crappy feelings, I'm going to speak crappy words and take crappy actions. And if I speak crappy words and take crappy actions, I'm going to have crappy outcomes in my life. So it's been very important for me to begin to see, oh, I have to think positive thoughts, so I have positive feelings, and then those positive feelings will drive positive actions. All right, now here's the thing. It's not enough for me to sit on the couch and say, you know, I have $1 million to affirm in my mind and visualize all that. I have to actually go out and take action. So one of the things that I did was, as I said earlier, I started submitting my photos for publication. I started submitting them to newspapers, magazines, online, and all of that. Before I started this work, I would have never been able to do that because my mind was convinced that that was not going to work out. Not only was it going to work out, it was going to be painful, and I was going to be ashamed, and then I was going to beat myself up because it didn't work out. So positive affirmations are one tool. It's a very important tool. These other tools as well. Again, I'm going to talk more about them in detail in a later workshop. And then the next thing I want to say, let's talk about let's go over the exercises real quick because I think they relate to this. And then what we're going to do is, we still have a few more minutes before the break. So the first exercise for tonight was one thing that you guys did right in the last 6 months. Now, if you're like me, I can tell you everything I did wrong for the last year, but to think, boy, what did I do right? It takes some effort. So this is to begin to refocus from what's wrong with me to begin to focus on what's right with me, to begin to see myself in a new way by shifting what I focus on, what I give my attention to. The second exercise was one way that you've surprised yourself in the last year. Now, for me, it was a surprise that I got the very first show I entered into for my photography. It was an art show on Long Island, and I won third place in that show. And that just surprised the heck out of me because I never believed that was possible. I never thought that was something that I could do. So one way that you surprised yourself, because again, this is, the whole idea is until I change my thoughts about myself, until I change how I see myself, nothing in my outside world is going to change. See, most of the time we spend a lot of time trying to change behaviors, we try to change habits to, do everything outside of us. But that doesn't really work, or it doesn't work in the long term because we haven't changed who we think we are. It's impossible for me to act in a way that's inconsistent with my predominant thoughts and beliefs about myself. So by changing how I see myself, I change how I act, I change how I behave, and I change how I approach my life. And again, for me, it's been the difference between somebody who couldn't get off the couch, basically, in terms of being a professional photographer, to somebody who has traveled the world, who has won awards, who's had photographs published around the world, and all of that. Number three, and this relates to what I was just talking about, is one thing we'd like to change about ourselves. So again, for me, the key is, who do you think you are? How do you see yourself, and how can we begin to change that? See, who do I think I am is situational. It's always how I see myself in relation to a particular situation. So what I have to do is consider that situation and then change my thoughts and beliefs about myself with respect to that. So if it's, for instance, being an artist, a successful artist, if I see myself, as I said earlier, in a negative way, I'm not going to take any of the actions that I need to put my work out there. I'm not going to take a chance, take a risk on being rejected or criticized for my work and all of that. And then number four was to create a positive affirmation and use it every day. So when we come back from the break, I'm going to give you guys an opportunity to share your affirmations. And I may have some feedback. I actually am working on a list of affirmations, sample affirmations that people can use. If you don't have your own list, I'm putting together a list that I'm going to share with you guys. So let's do this. Let's go into our break, and then when we come back, we'll also have time for question and answer when we come back, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, we're back. So I have to admit, I was a little frazzled the first half of the workshop. So there's a couple other things I want to say real quick. A lot, and then we're going to open it up. We're going to work on the assignment. A lot of the things that I believe to be true about myself were the result of, basically, for lack of a better word, a 6-year-old thinking. I interpreted a lot of the stuff that happened to me as a kid. That's where I formed my personality, these negative thoughts and beliefs that I had about myself. And what I realized was all of that stuff was just completely made up. It really was the mind of a child who couldn't understand what was going on. Now, it's in no way an indictment of my parents. They did a great job. They loved me. They did the best they could. But I didn't have the capacity, like most kids, to understand that when there was some negativity directed my way, it wasn't about me. But I internalized all of that stuff, and I came to certain conclusions about myself. And I let those conclusions run my life without realizing that that stuff was all just made up. It was just, as I said, the result of the thinking of a 6-year-old. So that's actually really good news, because it means now I can recreate myself, I can recreate my life, I can make up a whole new life and move in a positive direction. This idea that I can be whoever I want to be. I don't have to be, my past doesn't have to define me. Now, it takes work. I have to say I work on this stuff every day. But I see that I'm not the same person I was. Now, I know a lot of you personally that are in the meeting tonight. I know you guys have made changes in your own lives, so I want to hear what you think, how you've done that. But the point is, it's been so interesting for me to notice that I'm really in control with all of this. I also realize that when there's a problem or a challenge in my life, it's not the situation that's the problem. The problem is always and only how I see myself in that situation. Now that's actually really good news because I usually can't change the situation, but I can change how I see myself. And the next part of the puzzle is in chapter 2 in the book, I talk about taking responsibility. And so a big part of me moving forward in a new direction with a new career and a different life has been to begin to take responsibility for my thoughts, feelings, words, and actions. And I have a whole discussion on what that means, but when I take responsibility for how I'm feeling, what I'm thinking, I stop giving my power away, and then I can actually move forward in a direction that I want to move. Instead of being who I think I am or who I thought I was, I can now be who I want to be. All right? So there's a lot more to say about all this. We'll cover more of this in future workshops. If you haven't gotten the book yet, you may want to take a look because there's a lot in here that I'm not saying right now. But what I want to do is just open it up. I want to say hi to everybody. As I said, I'm thrilled that you guys are all here. This is it's actually my first Zoom webinar, so I'm still learning all the controls and everything. But let's start. Does anybody have any questions? Anybody just want to ask about anything or just say hello or let us know you're out there? You can unmute yourself, I think. Or should I unmute you?
Hey, I'll start. This is Fred. Hey, Peter. Thank you for offering this. I really appreciate it. Hey.
You're welcome.
And you look, thank you for, you look very happy. I'm happy to see you.
I feel happy.
Good. I love your work. I see your work on Instagram. Very
cool.
Inspiring.
It's good to hear your voice.
Thank you.
Great. I'm glad you're here.
Yeah.
Do you want to chime in on any of the exercises, or you just want to say hi?
Well, I can just share briefly. I'm just like today is a low spot, so I'm listening. I'm trying to be like a sponge, and I'm aware that I've been feeling kind of stuck. So hearing this stuff, and I relate to the 6-year-old thinking thing and kind of making things up from a very, very small perspective. In other words, not really, great perception, poor perspective. And answer these questions. I'm just curious. I didn't come up with a positive affirmation. I did have it's called an action meeting and another program I do, and there's some really good stuff came out of that. So I'm feeling better just being here, but I got a lot to learn. Thanks. A lot to let go of.
Great. Thanks, Fred.
Thank you.
Who else wants to say hi or do one of the exercises?
All right. Well, there was one, and I think you could relate to it with me, but, I switched jobs in the middle of a pandemic, and I had a little help from you. And, they were not in the office, so I had to do it through the computer, but I recognize my computer doesn't work at home. So at the office, I was able to scan and send 35 pages over to HR and got the job.
Woo.
I know, and I can't even find the little Rubik's Cube in the corner here of my own.
You're doing
so
all right.
did good. I did good.
That's great.
And, whatever. But the problem there is sometimes is that you do get stuck in that I'm not good enough, because I didn't recognize till last night that my computer just is not set up for me to use it. So here I was blaming myself for 2 years, Peter. And I recognize that it's not set up.
That's great. Good. So you look differently at the same problem, and it sounds like maybe you're just being nicer to yourself.
Definitely.
Good. Excellent. All right. Anybody else want to say hi or do one of the exercises? Nancy, we can't hear you. Let me try to unmute you. Hang on. I think you have to unmute yourself, though.
Thrilled every time I get one of your photographs. I'm the daughter of a filmmaker, so I have a film photography background. And Peter, you're amazing.
Thank you. Nancy, tell me one thing that you did right in the last 6 months.
Trying to help. I help businesses. I give them advice. things that I'm able to see that would help them. And so I guess those are things that you do right when you're helping businesses. I gave D'Agostino an idea, the supermarket chain in New York. I spoke to the big shots there and gave them a criticism of something, and within a week they had changed something in the store. So I guess those are things that you're doing right
There
for
you
other
go.
people, right?
Yep.
Not
Being of
necessarily,
service.
not necessarily for myself, but for other people. It's easier
Good.
to do things, good things somehow for other people than for myself. Is that
All right.
typical?
Probably.
Yeah.
All right, good.
There you
Nancy,
go.
let's see if anybody else wants to chime in. Do we have any other volunteers?
Hey, Pete, it's John. I'm glad you
John,
got
how
the
are
invite
you?
for all this. I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm good, thanks.
I missed our little get-togethers on with Nancy over there in Summit. So I
Oh,
was just starting to get into that, just joining the club and looking at people's work and learning and talking and stuff like that. It was fun. Hope to get back to that sooner or later.
Yeah, we're doing it online. So we do a Zoom meeting like this once a month.
Yeah, we just happened to see that today. Marita actually saw it. I didn't get the invite from Nancy, so I have to call her and make sure she includes me on the list. So,
Do you want to chime in on one of the questions?
Pete, I guess the one thing I like to change about myself is going forward. That's why I'm kind of in this thing, to be better at things that I'm not so good at. like this, like just telling you like what I need to be better at. I don't always do the right thing or say the right thing, but I hope to improve on that as things go on.
So let's just take a specific example. So what's one thing, it doesn't have to be the biggest thing in the world or anything like that. Let's just say, just pick one small thing that you would like to do differently.
I like to be better. How do I want to say this? My diet.
Okay.
I'm trying to correct that now, where we're eating a lot more healthier stuff and things like that. So I'm trying to improve on that. So it's a start there.
And so is there something in your self-image, how you see yourself, who you think you are, that makes that difficult?
I think this pandemic is staying home and not being able to get out and do things is making it a little bit more difficult. So we used to move around a little bit more. Now it's like you got to pick and choose where you go so you don't come in contact, and the world has changed as we know it, right?
Right.
Hope to get it back sooner or later. But
And so in terms of, I'm just going to go out on a limb here, John. Are you ever like hard on yourself because of the choices that you make or don't make?
I am somewhat, but I tend to be harder on the people around me for stuff that
right.
yeah.
Right. So again, for me, it was recognizing that it was my own self-recrimination. I guess I take it out on other people too sometimes, but it was mostly directed against myself, and that self-recrimination that made it so hard for me to change, because it was like if I didn't meet my own standards, or if I didn't do what I thought I was supposed to be doing, the hammer would come down and I would beat the heck out of myself, And I think what I found for me was that was really one of the biggest impediments to me moving forward.
Right.
When I started submitting my photos for shows and exhibitions and all of that, there was a lot of rejection. I mean, I did get into a couple of shows pretty quickly, and I did win an award in one show, but most of the stuff that I was sending out, it was rejection, rejection, rejection. And I
Right.
realized, number one, I couldn't take that personally. And number two, it doesn't have to become a reason for me to be mean to myself or somebody else. And that was kind of a revelation. I mean, my knee-jerk reaction was when I didn't do something perfectly or the right way or whatever, to go after myself. And that created a lot of fear and resistance. So if you're challenged, I mean, it sounds like maybe, eating in a certain way or certain foods and all of that becomes a way of kind of coping with an uncomfortable situation. The last chapter in this book is 60 pages long. It's about almost a quarter of the entire book, and it's about forgiveness. And for me, the biggest forgiveness was to forgive myself for my shortcomings, my imperfections, all the mistakes I made in my life. And so that's kind of my message, self-love, self-forgiveness. That opens up a lot of energy. When I was beating myself up every day, I couldn't send my photos out for shows or exhibitions or for publication, because there was too much negativity going on in my own mind.
Right. You're
So,
kind of beating yourself.
Huh?
I see you were kind of beating yourself.
I was.
Yeah.
I totally was.
Yeah.
And that took the wind out of my sails.
Understood.
All right, good. Thank you, John. Anybody else want to chime in?
Hi, I'll chime in. This is Janet.
Hey, Janet.
You recognize my voice at all?
I do recognize your voice.
You do. Awesome.
Good to hear you.
Get rid of this picture. Okay. That was me before COVID. This is me during COVID. Okay. So, so I was thinking about, I hadn't done the assignment on the affirmation. And so I was thinking about what, if there was like one thing that would encompass what I need to work on. It's that I've noticed that my brain goes to everything is hard. And then I can't do it because it's too much work or I'm not capable, but everything's hard. And I realize that I psych myself out about everything. And I'll notice I even do it about the smallest things, that I have this voice that says that. So I was trying to figure out an affirmation because it's such a global problem.
Well, let's do this. So
Yeah.
first of all, one of the things I say in the book,
Mm-hmm.
and I mentioned this a minute ago, was it's never the situation that's the problem, but it's always how I see myself in that situation.
Absolutely.
And if I want to know how I see myself in a particular situation, I look at how I'm describing it to myself or other people. So I too describe the situation as, oh, it's so hard. It's going to take such a long time. It's not going to work out. What I'm really saying in that situation is that I don't think I can handle it. I see myself as someone who is powerless or not capable or can't take care of himself, So when you describe the situation as hard, it may or may not be difficult, it may or may not be time consuming, but the issue is, how do you see yourself in that situation? So why don't we pick something, I know it's a global thing, but let's pick one, just think about in the last couple of days, what did you think of as hard or difficult? What kind of situation?
Like I'm not an organized person. So, like I'll think about that I'm conserving my energy by not putting something away, like for example, right? And so then I'm really, obviously it's very defeatist. So I'll be like, oh no, it's too hard to do that because I'm busy doing this. So it could be something that small, like just like organization, let's use that.
All right, good. All right, so is it, I think it was interesting, so you used the word self-defeatist. Did I hear you say that?
Yes.
All right, so that's also part of who we think we are in a given situation. If I think I'm someone who defeats myself, which I get that actually, I've had that experience. You want to look at how you're describing it, and then the thing to do is begin to tell a different story. You know, for me, it was a story of, well, I don't have to be the greatest photographer in the world to sell a print to somebody or to get published in a newspaper. You know, it was kind of like just slowly changing the story about who I was in that situation, you know, and
Like
and
good
if
enough. Like I could do it good enough.
yeah, good enough. You know, the other thing is perfectionism. I don't know if that's an issue for you. That's certainly something I've dealt with. Perfectionism and procrastination, for me, they're multi-syllable words for fear. You know, if I'm procrastinating on something, it's because I'm afraid. If I'm trying to do something perfectly, it's because I'm afraid that if I don't do it perfectly, there's going to be some consequence that I can't handle. Or I'm not going to look good, or people are going to criticize me or laugh at me, you know. So beginning to see how I see myself in that situation, and then beginning to change that, to see it differently. Affirmations are great. As I said, let me see what we got here.
Yeah,
Some
I
of
was
these
thinking
other
of
tools.
I was thinking of which put like, for example, if I don't want to take too much time here, but like if we were to make an affirmation around the subject of like I have enough energy, um, like the idea of following through and finishing something because there is enough energy to finish it and then do the next thing and finish it, do the next thing.
I'm energized. I'm vital. I have all the energy and vitality I need to do all the things that I want.
Ooh, that's perfect. That's beautiful.
Yeah, I see myself as powerful. I see myself as competent. I see myself as capable. And if I don't do what I say I'm going to do today, then I'm going to forgive myself for that. I'm not going to beat myself up for that. I'm not going to make myself wrong. I'm not going to defeat myself by beating myself up for being imperfect. You know, I'm going to be my own best friend. I'm going to be nice to myself no matter what. And if I notice I'm not nice to myself, I'm going to forgive myself for that. You know, it's for me, it's the self-hatred, it's the self-loathing, it's the not good enough that just takes all my energy away.
Sure. Definitely. Definitely.
So be your own best friend about it. You know, you can make a list of things you want to accomplish, and then instead of looking at the things you don't get to on that list, look at the things you do get to and celebrate that.
Sounds good.
You
The
know,
thing I did, oh, go
well,
on.
I was going to say we make up these stories and then we run our lives by them, and it's not fun. My life, you know, I keep playing this song. I love my life. I didn't feel that way 5 years ago. I hated my life, and I blamed everybody else for it. It was everybody else's fault that my life wasn't working. Okay, what were you going to say?
Oh, you wanted us to say something we did good in the last 6 months.
Yeah. What do you got?
I've done a good job being my mother's medical power of attorney and making sure she's always taken care of.
Excellent. That's great.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, doing something right is when we do something that benefits ourselves or somebody else. So, and you know, at the end of the day, we get to decide what's right and what's not right. And you know, I've learned for me, I get to decide what's a mistake, what's not a mistake, what's a failure, what's not a failure, and beginning to define all those things in a way that serves me and moves me forward instead of holding me back. You know, so. I actually have a whole section in the book about how there's no such thing as right and wrong. We're just making all that up anyway. So we may as well make it up in a way that serves us, you know, that moves us forward. And we feel good about ourselves.
I like that. I look forward to buying the book. I'm going to do that.
Cool. Great.
Thanks,
Thank
Peter.
you, Janet. Anybody else? still have time. So if anybody else wants to share.
Yeah, I'll
Question?
share for a minute, Peter. Helena.
Hi,
I
Helena.
really want to say congratulations because I know, like, maybe was it 12 years ago,
Yeah.
right? Your vision really came true,
Yeah.
and it's really fascinating and amazing. And I really want to say congratulations. It's really inspiring, to see how someone's vision can really come true, And when I was listening to your, this webinar earlier, that, like, if I reflected over to my life right now, like, I mean, yes, my part of vision came true too, even though it didn't turn out to be exactly the way I wanted. But I think, okay, so you asking me in the past 6 months, the best accomplishment that I think I have achieved, or the things that I really that I think that I did right, was doing the taxes in the two countries, and taking care of my life and be responsible, because I've never done such a things like that, doing taxes for two different countries. But um,
Are you still in South Korea?
yeah, I'm still here.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, it's, I mean, I just want to say this briefly. Like, I've gone through years of disability because I got ill, and, I'm still living with that. I recovered tremendously. I mean, I have a miracle in my life, and I'm so grateful. But I just want to say that it needs some work, like nothing comes for free. It's like those self-affirmations and, visualization and, vision board, all these things are a little bit of work that I got to do for myself. And actually, when I was listening to this, whole thing, I felt this resistance, that arise, from inside of me. It's like saying that, okay, like, it's not possible, or it's not believable, it can't happen,
Perfect.
and
Perfect.
yeah, and I felt like I really need to, listen to your audiobook, because I mean, I was a really successful earner back in Los Angeles as a designer, and then I had this, health problem happen, and then I lost everything, and then, I got my health back. This is like a miracle, but I'm just not able to go forward from there, because I was staying under being a disabled person for, like number of years. So I'm still having the same mindset that I can do it. I can do that, and I really want to overcome that and change it. So I just want to say thank you so much for, being who you are, and just, doing this wonderful free workshop. And I really want to say congratulations. Just fantastic. I want to tell a lot of people about it. I already told some friends in, UK, and also who's living in the States. So I just
Well,
want to
okay,
say,
great, but I'm not going to let you go yet. So when I said
okay.
perfect before, your thought was it's not possible for me, and you had resistance to the idea that you could change who you are by changing how you see yourself. Is that right?
Yeah, I'm having I might have to go see like a psychologist again, or a psychiatrist, because, like I said, I think, our brain we get really used to how we live, and we just get programmed, right? So I already have this, I mean, I want to change it, and I'm very much of a person who likes to change, who's like a go-getter, but, I have a really hard time, because I had to fight through this, the health, the major health crisis that I've gone through. Also, I had a really hard time after I came here, because it's a brand new place for me. So I do have to make that effort, but I probably need some kind of action partner, or people that I can do this with, because
So
it's really hard to be alone.
That's something else I was going to say. It's been very helpful for me, like when I began my journey, or whatever you want to call it, when I started moving forward in my photography business, I had an action partner. Actually, I had a few action partners. So that was somebody, and I recommend this for all you guys, it's somebody that I spoke to on a regular basis, usually every day, and it was somebody who supported me and who I supported them. They were moving forward with their business. They were also a photographer. And so having that support, having somebody, whether it's a mentor or an action partner or a coach, or a mastermind group. I just joined a mastermind group, so there's 5 of us. We meet once a week, and then we meet in between. We support each other in achieving our goals and our visions. It's a combination of, I think the biggest thing for me, so the other thing I was going to say, and Helena, I don't want to put words in your mouth, so just tell me if this is true for you. I know this has been true for me. The other thing I was hearing in your voice was you were afraid, I don't want to project, so you tell me if this is true. I heard some resistance because there was a fear of disappointment. Like maybe I can't do this, and then it's going to hurt even more. It's going to be disappointing. Or, well, I don't know. Does that resonate?
I think for me, there's definitely a block. You know, the block could just happen because, you know, I mean, honestly, I almost lost my life at some certain points, you know, back in the days because I was very ill. And because of that, I think I had to build some kind of very strong, like a resistance, you know, like a block. You know, I'm kind of shut down. And, you know, I've been wanting to go to, you know, go get some professional help. I mean, I've been in therapy all along, but, you know, I don't know. I mean, someone suggested to me that I should have tried to do some mirror work, you know, like a mirror work, looking at myself in the mirror and, you know, speaking to myself every day. I haven't tried it yet, but yeah, I mean, I do need some positive force, you know, or support for me to be able to get out of this, you know, my own little box, you know, box of basically like I can't.
You know, you overcame, it sounds like you overcame, I know you had some family stuff too that you were dealing with for a long time. It sounds like you overcame all of that, which is proof that you may be bigger than you think you are, or stronger than you think you are, or, I mean, you can look at it 2 ways, you know. That's why they say sometimes, you know, when we go through a difficult situation, it makes us stronger, you know.
Absolutely.
It all depends on how we frame it. You know, and changing how I see myself, it's all of it. You know, it's a lot to overcome. I have to be honest. I say in the book over and over again, this is simple, but it ain't easy. You know, and so it does take effort. I'm looking right now at my couch, and I do my meditation and my prayer and my affirmations every morning. You know, I spend about an hour and a half every day reprogramming, quite honestly. So for me, it takes, and then I go write a damn book like this, and now it's like, oh, I got to live up to this stuff, you know. So it takes a lot of effort for me to reprogram all that negative thinking. Now, the thing I want to say is, you know, a lot of what we experience in life can be painful, it can be challenging, it can be difficult, but we still get to choose what it means for us. In chapter 2 in the book, I say, we're not responding to what's happening out there. We're responding to the meaning that we give that situation.
Okay.
And it's the meaning that has, you know, that can drive us forward or hold us back. Now, I've also described it as, you know, I get to tell the story. You know, what story do I tell about my childhood? Or what story do I tell about not getting into that show or exhibition? Or what story do I get to tell about, you know, not getting published in the newspaper, whatever. So it's the meaning we give the situation. It's a story we tell about it. And we're in control of that. And you can, you know, the thing I was trying to say before is, you know, all that stuff that happened to me when I was a kid, all of that stuff is what I made up about it. It was just all my interpretation. And so we can make up a new story. We can tell a new story about who we are. And if we're not going to beat ourselves up or make ourselves wrong for failing, then there's no risk.
Yeah, a lot. I mean, I think you've done a lot of work. You know, it's just, I know how much work that you had to do. You know, it just amazing, and it's just really amazing and inspirational because I know what it takes. You know, I mean, yeah, you're right. You made it very clear that, yeah, absolutely, I have accomplished, you know, getting something. Like I became healthier, and this is like a miraculous thing. But you know, I think I might be in a transition between like, you know, where I'm at now and then, where I will be in next 5 years or something, But anyway, I'm just very grateful that I can be here. And, thank you so much for doing this for free. Actually, that was another inspiration, it's like a generosity of spirituality that, which also inspired me, to know that I can do something for free, for other. I don't have to always charge for my, this online classes that I held for, for small students that I have. It's such a absolutely amazing. This is really fantastic. So
Thank you, Helena. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
So glad you're here. Anybody else want to chime in? We have a few more minutes. Oh, it's actually only 9 o'clock.
Hi, Peter.
Hi.
It's Michelle.
Hey, Michelle.
I think it's between 1 and 4. One thing I did right. I was online, and I don't know if it was Instagram or Facebook, and I reached out to a photographer, and he said to share some of my photos to like a public page, and I did during quarantine, and I submitted it to the community forum, and I was able to get it into the library, but we haven't gotten that point yet because the library is not open.
Right.
But I got it printed, and it's framed, and it's ready, my photos. So that's sort of exciting. But I think it's my self-confidence that holds me back. And I can relate to a lot of things you say about negativity because that's my mindset.
Do you remember, Michelle, do you remember, I think I talked about this at the workshop we did at the,
In Summit.
in Summit at the Visual Arts Center. Do you remember what I said about self-confidence?
No.
So what I found for me, okay, so this was many years ago, and I was thinking, I lack confidence. It must be, I'm just trying to figure out my problem, and I'm saying, well, it must be that I lack confidence. So I went to the dictionary and I looked up the definition of the word confidence. And it was something like self-assuredness, or, it was what we would expect. But then there was another definition underneath that one, and it defined a confidence as a trusting relationship. And I thought, wow, so that means self-confidence is a trusting relationship with myself. Now, what does that mean? Well, I could see that, a big part of what was causing a lot of the fear and trepidation and anxiety in my life was I couldn't trust myself to be nice to myself if I made a mistake or if I did something wrong, or, it was like,
There you go.
right? Does that resonate?
Messing up. It's messing up that I think holds me back, of not knowing the steps of how to make myself successful as to my photography. And like you said, one thing that you think you could do right. And I've been helping a neighbor of mine who has been my cheerleader. And she came down with like either dementia or Alzheimer's. And she was always positive for me. And I did something that I was able to step in and help her. And I was able to, with her friend and myself, I was able to help her son and the social worker at a local hospital to get her into a facility for long-term care. And it was interesting because I do crossing guard as well. And I was talking to the police, and they said a lot of people don't do what you do because of the repercussion of what they think might happen. Like if something went wrong. And that's what holds a lot of people back because of just life, and so
you do good things for other people, but how about for yourself?
Well, the thing is, I was talking to a neighbor, and I did pet therapy, and I was talking to a neighbor, and she was saying, how about, like, I was saying how I was going to do, besides the photography, which I really didn't do much, I haven't done much with. So I said, how about doing like a class on becoming a home health aide? And my fear is failing. And she's a little older than I, and she said the same thing. And I was like, wow, I could actually relate to you. And, I said, so what's the worst? I pay for the class and I fail, and what? I take it again. And since I already have the experience with somebody before, my neighbor and herself, I said, let me take the class, and it's going to be July 27th to 31st, and I pay a fee, and I take the class from 9 to 2. And then, I either pass or fail. So it's a chance.
So what was the other thing? What was the other thing I said at Summit about failure?
I don't
So-
remember.
We get to decide what's a success and what's a failure. And one of the things I started doing when I was first kind of moving forward with my photography business, I started to listen to interviews with successful people, business people, even like somebody like Oprah Winfrey. And I was hearing over and over again that their biggest, quote, failures, their biggest setbacks, their biggest mistakes actually were a huge gift in their life, because it moved them in a new direction. It taught them something. It was a lesson to redirect their business or redirect their life, the whole thing. So is it really a failure? If something positive came out of it, now it didn't go the way they thought it was going to go or were hoping it was going to go, but if something positive came out of it, was it really a failure? So the point is, we get to decide what's a success, what's a failure. We get to decide how we're going to treat ourselves if things don't work out the way we want them to. See, here's the thing. This is all about taking our power back. It's all about saying, I'm going to decide how I feel about this. I'm not going to let somebody else or society or whatever tell me how I should think, how I should feel, what I should say, or what I should do. So that's chapter 2. That's about taking responsibility.
Well, I
But-
think a
ahead.
lot, like when after I went through high school and going into college, I didn't get to do what I wanted to do. I listened to my parents, and I listened to their negative thoughts on what I should do instead of what I wanted to be, and how they perceived what I wanted to do. If that makes sense.
Sure.
You
But here's the
know,
thing. I think a lot of parents, you're a parent yourself, right?
I have 3 kids, yeah.
Yeah.
And believe me, I live my life through my kids, and it's a struggle every day because I have 2 kids that are struggling out of 3, and I deal with counselors every day. So, I
But
see
you want
I
the
think
best.
I see the things you say through my kids, and if they could hear you, I could see what they're going through by what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
At their age, and they're 14 and 16, and I see what you're saying at their age. And I said to the counselor today, and I gave her your name, and I said, hey, listen to you. And I said, it's interesting, he's not a counselor, he's not a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I said, but he has a lot of useful information. And I said, you should maybe try to zoom in. And I said, it's free, and she wrote it down. Whether she zoomed in or not, I don't know. But
I'm not seeing her.
I don't know. Her name
But let
was
me go back.
Erica.
Let me just go back for a second, Michelle. You said
Yeah.
you did what your parents wanted you to do.
Yeah.
Right? Now, all
Which
I was
was
going to
go
say
to
before.
college. And I
Right.
didn't want to really do, they thought I'd have to be a boss to be successful. And I wanted to either go into cosmetology or be a flight attendant. And they said being a cosmetologist was brainless. And to be a flight attendant was a glorified waitress in the air. So I haven't done any of that yet. And I said, maybe if I'm 60, I'll do a flight attendant. You know, and I said, I still have 20 years before I do that. And I can't do that now because I have 3 kids and my youngest is 10. So I can't do that because I still have how many years for him? You know, but
All
I
right,
like
so
photography.
I'm gonna, I'll put you in touch with Barbara because Barbara was both a flight attendant and a cosmetologist. But here's my point, and this is why I asked you about your kids. I like to believe, and again, I'll speak for myself. When I got suggestions, when I got feedback from my parents, you know, they just wanted the best for me. And they were afraid that I was going to, you know, they didn't want me to suffer. They didn't want me to experience disappointment. They didn't want me to experience pain. You know, so I'm just going to say, I mean, you know, our parents, and you're a parent, you want the best for your kids. So maybe that's where they were coming from when they gave the advice they gave. Now, I'm not going to make excuses for, you know, any inappropriate behavior or anything like that. But I'm just saying the point now is you can tell a different story about all that. And you can decide for yourself, all right, so they said what they said, I did what I did, but now I get to decide. Now I'm my own person, and I get to choose. And, you know, the good news and the bad news of that is that if I take responsibility, it means if things don't work out, I can't blame my mother as much as I want to, you know, or whatever. So, you know, now I have to take responsibility for my choices, but I get to do what I want to do. You know, my family is very supportive. They're wonderful. I love them. They love me. But I know that they were a little concerned when I decided I was going to be a photographer instead of a lawyer. You know, they're like, what are you thinking? You know, what are you doing? So, but I decided I was going to take that risk and I was going to accept the consequences of that choice without beating myself up so much, you know. And I think that's the thing I would say to you. There's no failure if you don't beat yourself up. If things don't work out, then there's no failure. There's nothing to be afraid of.
It's just getting to that point and knowing the steps to take to get to that point. You know, the steps to take to become a successful photographer or to pass a test to become a home health aide. It's just getting past that and then realizing that it's going to be okay. You know, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I get it. The thing I would say is don't talk yourself out of it. See, this is what we do. This is what I do. I talk myself out of shit all the time. So that's what you don't want to do because then you'll be stuck on the couch like I was. So, you know, even writing this book, you know, there's a voice in my head that says, you're not a psychologist, you're not a therapist, you're not, you know, who do you think you are to write a book like this? And I can't listen to that voice and still move forward.
I think
So I
you're
have to-
real as a person, and I think that's what makes even therapists successful is the realism and not
Yes.
just like textbook, because I don't think that works to categorize you and label you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It just doesn't work, and I've seen it with my kids, and it just doesn't. And I think negativity, and that's what holds me back, and anxiety.
Well, okay, so Michelle, I want to give other people a chance if there's anybody else who wants to go, but let me say this, okay? So set a small goal. Maybe it's to take that home health worker test or whatever it is. You know, just set one small goal. Let go of, don't talk yourself out of it. It's like, it doesn't matter if I fail or not, I'm just going to take this step. And then you go little by little and you build up. What you do is you learn you can trust yourself. Because again, for me at least, most of the anxiety I was feeling was from my own self-recrimination. It wasn't from somebody else, you know, it was like the only person whose opinion really matters of me is my own. So if I have a positive opinion, no matter how things go, then I don't have to worry. I don't have to be afraid. It doesn't matter what other people think.
But how do you get
So-
to that point?
You won't know until you try. And you got to make a decision. You just got to say, you know what? It doesn't matter what they think of me. It only matters what I think of me. What other people think of me, here's an affirmation for you, Michelle. What other people think of me is none of my business.
Okay.
And then just take the small, you probably have to register to take the exam. So just do small steps. And
Okay.
make a decision, that you're going to forgive yourself no matter how it goes.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Michelle. Anybody else want to chime in? We still got about 20 minutes. No, 10 minutes. How about one way you surprised yourself in the last year? Anybody? All right, anybody want to go again?
I just want to ask you, like, if it's okay for you to share maybe like a few self-affirmations that you use.
Helena, my favorite affirmations right now are, I got this, I can handle this, I'm going to love myself no matter how this goes. I'm actually doing a second edition of the book, and I talk in there about there's this core thing that we share as human beings, which is to know, and it's very relative to what's happening right now in the world, to know that we're safe and that we're loved. And so I have an affirmation: I am safe, I am loved. Just keeping it really simple, not just one sentence or less. Let me think what else. Actually, I may be able to find them. No, I don't have them on this computer, but I'm working on a list. So once that list is available, I'll let you know.
Thank you.
And it's different for everybody, so whatever speaks to you. But again, here's the thing. It's got to be relatively believable. It has to be something that I repeat over and over again. And then it has to be something, or it should be something, that propels me to take action, to be different in my life, to feel more positive, to feel more energized. So if the affirmation's not doing that for you, try a different affirmation.
Right, thanks.
All right, who else? See this photo behind me? I took that out of a helicopter flying over Manhattan. And when we fly in a helicopter over Manhattan, we have to take the doors off. So, I don't know if you can see it better here in this shot. So I'm hanging out at 1,500 feet, hanging out of a helicopter with no doors. And I got to tell you guys, I was somebody who would not ride a roller coaster, who would not, I hated anything that was, it was hard for me to do anything that was not on solid ground. But within 5 minutes of getting in that helicopter, I just let all of that go. And I was just like, I'm going to be in the moment. I'm going to enjoy this. And it was thrilling. It was so, and I forgot all about my fear. I forgot all about my anxiety. That for me was being bigger than I think I am. And I've done these flights over New York City like many times now. And again, it just came from seeing myself differently, and it was just like, why not? What's the worst that could happen? Now, every time there's a helicopter crash in New York City, people, they message me on Facebook. They want to make sure I wasn't on that helicopter. But I never think about that. I just think about how much fun it's going to be, the amazing photos I'm going to get. There's actually a company that prints these and sells them. And I get a nice residual check every few months from them. And it was just me out having a good time. Somebody chatted me. Okay, anybody else? John, you want to say something?
I'm good, Pete. I don't know that I hit something that.
All right, no, you just popped up on my screen.
Oh, okay.
Hi, Peter. It's this is Fred. I thank you for everything so far. I wanted to ask you about give you another example of a situation where you were able to shift the way you saw yourself in the situation. Meaning, you couldn't change the situation, but you could change how you looked at it. To look
I
at
got a
yourself.
perfect example for you, Fred.
Great.
Public speaking. All right. For most of my life, I was terrified of any kind of public speaking. And this was, I mean, this is actually kind of easy. You know, I'm talking about being in front of an audience on a stage or something like that. And I have to say, for, you know, even when I was practicing law, other things that I've done in my life, it was terrifying for me. I mean, it was a fate worse than death, you know, to be in front of a group of people. And when you know, as I was doing all this work and as I was changing my idea about myself, I began to look at that and I began to think, all right, so it's not the situation. See, as I talk about in chapter 4, all right, we give our power away to situations. So I was convinced that the situation, public speaking, was making me feel the way I was feeling, which was anxious. I mean, I would shake and sweat. I mean, I was a mess. And I was convinced it was that situation. And then I started, you know, doing this work, and I was like, well, maybe it's not the situation. Maybe it's how I see myself. And is there a way I can begin to change that? Now, I had to identify what the negative thoughts were. So I saw myself as unattractive. I saw myself as incompetent, not articulate. I saw myself as, you know, unworthy. You know, who do I think I am to address an audience? You know, all those negative thoughts. And that's what was creating the anxiety. It was those negative thoughts that created the negative feelings. Remember, our thoughts lead to our feelings, and our feelings lead to our words and actions, and our words and actions lead to the experiences that we have. So it was those negative thoughts about myself that were creating the anxiety. It wasn't the fact that I'm in front of an audience. So in 2017, I got a message on Instagram. I show my photos on Instagram. And I got a message, and it was from, ostensibly, it was from a college in Colombia, South America. And they were having an international week for their students where they invite speakers from other countries to come in and speak to their students. So, you know, I was a little skeptical, you know, messages on Instagram, but they wanted to fly me down to Cartagena in Colombia, South America, put me in a hotel, and give me the opportunity to speak at their college. So I did my research. I found out it was legit, and I went down there, and I ended up speaking at 3 different colleges to probably about 1,500, maybe 2,000 students. And I was speaking to them about my photography, about my career, but I was also speaking to them about life in the United States. People all over the world, people want to know about New York. What's it like to live in New York, you know, all of that. So I was up there, and I got to tell you, I loved it. I mean, it was the greatest thing ever, you know, and I do this thing where I didn't want to stand on the stage, so I take the microphone and I go down into the audience, and I go all the way to the back of the room to talk to the people who are hiding out back there. And, you know, it drives the audio-visual people crazy because they were taping it and everything else. But, I mean, I like that connection now. I love that connection. And it was great with college students. You know, it was like, because I remember when I was in college, I was like, oh my God, you know, I was so afraid of going out into the world. So talking to these college students. So so changing how I saw myself allowed me to do that. Now, here's the real part I want to tell you about that story. I was the last night I was there, and I was out photographing the city at night, and I was with one of the translators and his wife. So you know, a lot of the students didn't speak English, so that at every one of my talks, they had translators. So I'm taking them out shooting, and I'm giving them pointers on how to photograph at night. And all of a sudden, there's a group of college-age kids, maybe 40 or 50 feet away from us. And all of a sudden, one of them comes over to me, and he walks right up to me and he says, "I know who you are." He said, "You're that American that's in town talking about your photography." And I said, "Yeah," you know, and I just assumed he had attended one of the lectures that I gave. And so I said to him, I said, "Well," I said, "how did you enjoy the conference, the lecture?" And he said, "Oh, I didn't see you." He said, "My friend saw you, and you have inspired him to pursue his dreams in life, and he's telling everybody all about you." And he said, "You changed this guy's life." And I was like, and in that moment, it was just like, when I get out of my own way, when I stop holding back because I'm afraid of what other people are going to think about me or what I'm going to think about me, I can have a positive impact on the world. So here, this thing, it just came, you know, and the translator and his wife looked at me, and it was just like, in that moment, I knew the trip was worthwhile, and I knew that it was the result of letting go of the old story that says I'm not good enough, I don't have what it takes, nobody's going to want to hear what I have to say, you know, all those negative messages. When I'm able to move all of that out of the way, I can have a positive impact. And honestly, that's why I wrote this book. You know, this has been one of the toughest things I've ever done in my life. Some of you know me personally. I mean, I've been working on this for a long time. But I see the only way that I can really have a positive impact is to get out of my own way, stop telling those old stories, which were never true anyway. All that stuff was made up. How I'm not good enough, how I don't have what it takes, how I'm not capable, I'm not competent. All of that was just in my head. There was no, I created a reality based on those thoughts, and this is where it gets confusing for people. It's like our thoughts do create our reality, but what if the experience follows the thoughts rather than the other way around? So if I change my thoughts, if I change my beliefs, I'll have a different experience. And so anyway, I don't know if that answers your question, but it was so clear to me that the only thing in that particular situation, the public speaking, it was the self-recrimination, the negative thoughts and beliefs I had about myself that were creating all that anxiety. And when I shifted that, then I was able to have an impact in the world.
Thank you. That's actually very inspiring.
Yeah, beautiful story.
Yeah.
One other thing, real quick, Peter, you mentioned, I think you just mentioned briefly, was about self-forgiveness. Anything you want to say about self-forgiveness?
Well, again, Fred, I have a lot to say about that. Again, the last 60 pages of this book is all about forgiveness.
All right,
And
good. I'll get the book.
yeah, and you know, it's just being, it's if I could sum it up, what would I say? I mean, in a sentence or two, it's, you know, it's the same as loving myself. It's the same, when I first moved to California in the 1990s, I was taking all these human potential, personal growth, spiritual growth workshops, and they kept saying you have to love yourself, you have to love yourself. And I was like, what the fuck does that mean? I mean, what, you know, how do you love yourself? Do I buy myself flowers? Do I take myself out on a date? And I actually tried those things. And then eventually, you know, I'm thinking more about it, and it's like, no, I just treat myself the way I would treat somebody else that I really cared about. And I don't have any kids of my own, but I have nieces and nephews that I'm really close to, and I have siblings, you know, family members, and I can see that I treat them nicer than I would treat myself, and I would forgive them before I would forgive myself for a mistake or whatever. And I thought, well, maybe that's part of it. You know, maybe I can see the best in myself even when I'm not being who I think I'm supposed to be. And it's just a decision. It's just a choice. I can either beat myself up or I could forgive myself. And there's actually no right or wrong, although the quality of my life will be different depending on what choice I make.
Mm.
And it also gets old. It's just like, it's old beating myself up for the same stuff all the time.
Thank you.
I know you have a daughter, right, Fred?
I have two. Yeah.
So, I mean, how do you treat them? I'm sure you're a wonderful father. And can you apply that to yourself? Can you,
Right.
can you, unconditional love is just that. There are no conditions under which we withhold our love.
Mm.
Chapter 4. Chapter 4 is from, okay, I don't know if you guys can see this. Let me see. It's, you can read that. No, probably not. Try it on this one. The title of this chapter is From Fear to Love,
Mm.
From Fear to Love. All right? And fear is the opposite of love. And what I found for me is, unconditional love, it's loving myself when I least like who I'm being. It's easy to love myself when I'm doing all the things I think I'm supposed to do. When I'm marketing my business, when I'm making my marketing calls, when I'm, whatever I think I'm supposed to be doing. But, I found for me that the better measure of how much I really love myself is how I treat myself when I don't do any of that stuff. When I'm not doing what I think I'm supposed to do. And then it's like, I can see the difference in my life. When I forgive I used to think I can't let myself off the hook. I have to, I said this earlier, I think. It's like people used to say to me, you're so hard on yourself. You're so hard on yourself. And I say, of course, because how else am I going to be better? But that's completely wrong. The only way I'm going to be better is if I'm easy on myself. If I make it safe enough for myself to do the things that I'm afraid to do. Because the only reason I'm not doing those marketing calls or whatever I think I'm supposed to be doing is because I'm afraid. Now, again, if you have children, you probably have had a moment where it's like you're either going to be really angry at that kid or you're going to have really compassion and understanding for them because there's something that's holding them back, and so if I can have compassion for myself, if I can be my own best friend instead of my own worst enemy, that's how my life changes. And my life is not perfect, guys. I still got issues, and I still got stuff I'm working on. So there's actually going to be another book. But I'm not where I was. I mean, even a few years ago, my family can tell you that. Anyway, so is that helpful, Fred?
That's awesome. Thank you.
All right, good.
Beautiful.
Good. All right, I want to be respectful of everybody's time, so we're just about at the end. Anybody want to say anything before we wrap it up?
Just thank you. So great listening to you. Can't wait to get
Thank
your
you,
book.
Janet. Anybody else?
Does the book have exercises in it, Peter? Just curious.
Okay, so this is set up as a workbook.
Perfect.
At the end of every chapter, there are takeaways and then there are questions.
Okay, perfect.
It's totally a workbook.
Thank you.
All right, so what I'm going to do, guys, is I'm going to play that song again. You guys, did you hear the song on the break?
No.
All right. You couldn't hear the song?
No, I was on a break.
Oh, but I've been playing this song. I want you guys to listen to the words in the song, all right? It's 3.5 minutes. And I actually have the lyrics on screen. So don't go anywhere for the next 3.5 minutes. Listen and then say the words along with it. I sing this song twice a day out loud. My neighbors must think I'm out of my mind. All right?
Out of your old mind. Well, that's where I need to be.
I'm out of my old mind.
Beautiful.
All right, guys. So we're here every Wednesday now.
Mm.
So
Affirmation. That's a great affirmation. I love my life.
I love my life, right?
Yeah.
We're going to be here every Wednesday night now. I'm just going to do this. I'm going to have different topics and all of that. So if you want to come back next week, you know where to find me.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Thanks, Pete.
guys.
Thank you, Peter. Are we? Should we invite other people, or can we, if we feel so moved, or not?
Say what?
What about inviting others to this?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
The only thing is I asked people to register through my website.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I know the count, and it's a
Right.
different link. It's going to be a different link for the Zoom meeting every week.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Awesome.
Good night. Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Thanks, Peter.
Okay.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Peter.
Have a good
See you
week.
guys
Thank
soon.
you.